Brian, Joe had just talked about how you guys brought Jeter along a little earlier than anticipated due to the injuries to Gardner and Hafner. Any concern that he's not quite ready to be an everyday player?
Yeah, you never know until, listen, if he'll finish his rehab off in the big leagues. It's just, the roster, changes that occurred in game last night made us do some adjustments along the way. Obviously with Hafner going down primarily, Derek was scheduled to DH tonight in Scranton. And, so when we lost Hafner on a day-to-day situation, right away the thought popped in my head. Had a phone conversation last night with Gene Michael, who was in Scranton. He said he's moving around well. He looks really good. He hadn't completed the full profile that we had set up for him on his rehab. I've been staying in touch with Derek. He feels good. The Gardner circumstance, too. So now Joe's in a situation approaching today on a day game where you lose Gardy, as he's day-to-day. You lose Travis. So Vernon Wells goes out into the outfield. It just was just an obvious situation where, hey, he can DH tonight in Scranton or he can DH today in New York. Might as well bring him in and DH him in New York. So I talked to Derek last night. I got him on the phone probably about 11:15, 11:30 as I was driving home. And, once, all I had to hear from him was, hey, I'm ready. And he said that, and I said, all right, well, head on back. So. Did
you sense any excitement in his voice with you telling him you're up here tomorrow?
No, he's not an excitable guy. Everybody knows this is where, he needs to be. So, so I think he was just waiting. He knew the game plan, but I also talked to him earlier in the week and said, hey, it could be sooner, and it turned out that way based on the circumstances from last night's game here in the Bronx.
Coming off an injury, 39 years old, only a handful of rehab games. What are the realistic expectations for him?
I don't have any. I mean, bottom line is Derek is, he's one of the all-time competitors. He's healthy. He's moving around well. He'll have his days where he really helps us. There's some other days where obviously the opposing pitcher will dominate those at bats, and that's just the day. The way this stuff works. I mean, he's going to be, he's going to be competing on a daily basis against those opposing pitchers and providing, the defense and more times than not, he'll be extremely good for us. And that's just the nature of the beast. So we're better with him here, period. And, regardless of what today's outcome is, and if we have to finish, given the circumstances that occurred yesterday, it's just better for us to, be in a position to run him out here today than hold them off. And I know we have some weather issues that could affect us here as well as Scranton. So I was like, listen, I'd rather have him deal with, sitting around whether he's going to play or not play here in the Bronx versus Scranton. That's all.
Willie.
Brian, can you comment on what the status of Alex Rodriguez's return is at this point?
In his case, I think I stated in the beginning of his rehab process that he would go the whole 20 days. So he's in the middle of his rehab process, and it's going to go all the way to the end. He's coming off of a very complicated surgery, and so there's a reason he's an A-ball, and there was a reason we were able to put Derek in AAA, from the start, because Derek was obviously much farther along than where Alex was. So I think yesterday was probably the best day of Alex's rehab so far, as reported to me from our people. But he'll take the full 20 days, and that's where he's at.
Ron, thank you for waiting for the mic.
Coming off the broken ankle, do you expect the range to be exactly where it was last year, or do you count for some decreased range?
It's hard to say. I hear he's moving surprisingly well. So I think it's easy to say that you would expect with his age in a double break that you think he'd lose a step or two or a half a step. But I think it's I think he's moving extremely well. I think from what I'm told, and so it's hard for me to say. I haven't heard anybody tell me that he's missed any steps. Let's put it that way. So based on what he's been producing and showing in his drills and in the games with the the chances that he's had, or limited chances he's had, no one's flat out said anything about, wow, this is something different than before. It's, quite the contrary. It's like, wow, he's really running very well. He's moving very well. And so I would say that's a good thing.
Brian, with Alex, have there been any conversations about when he might move up a level, or whether he's close to being ready to do more?
I mean, he's doing what he's doing, but moving up a level hasn't come up yet. So I know when we talked the process initially, we felt that the first 10 days would be between Charleston and Tampa, and then we'd revisit about, and weather has to play a role in it as well. We'd evaluate after 10 days where he was at, as well as the weather opportunities and options in Trenton and Scranton, as well as maybe Staten Island or what have you, just moving him up the ladder and blah blah blah.
But those conversations haven't happened yet?
No. Okay. Not at my level. Those guys, Pat Russler, Mark Newman and the trainer and Alex, they may have talked amongst themselves, but they haven't presented anything to me on that.
Chad.
Catch with Derek back, is Nunez an option for you at third, or are you still viewing him strictly at short?
I think it's just. I think he's an option based on whatever the other alternatives are. So obviously we've run him over there, and we've also had him in the outfield. So I just think that comes down to a feel from Joe's perspective and the staff's perspective. We believe that he's a shortstop, but because of his athleticism, he can play all over. But I just think that it comes down to matchup issues and what Joe's comfort level is, and that's really a Joe call. I mean, but generally, as I've said before, we believe he's a shortstop, but athletically he's gifted. He can do a lot of different things, but we'll see.
Back to Dan.
Because Derek already had the first setback, is there any thought in the back of your mind of a level of concern that it might happen again when you watch him out there?
Actually, no. The feel on this is different. And before he wasn't running well. He had some pain. As we were trying to get an explanation of why and talking to the doctor back in Carolina, and you all lived this with us. He wasn't moving as well, and they just said, well, it's normal to have, some, experience of discomfort. So that's how it got chalked up to. This was discomfort. He's not having any discomfort. He's moving really well. He's running really well. There is none of that taking place here. So it's all, the belief is this is all behind us. If he fouls a ball off the foot and he starts like hopping around, then I think then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something here going on here. I think we all will be like that, because that's something that he will experience and he'll go through and all that stuff. But in terms of right now, no, he seems 100% healthy based on how he's acting. Everybody that's gone in to see him, I had Jim Hendry seeing him early. I had Gene Michael just there last night, and they all say the same thing. It's the first thing I was like, wow, I was surprised how he's moving. He's moving really well. So you could tell, and people's bodies tell you. You could tell. I think Derek feels like he feels great. That's why he's told everybody here all the time, I'm ready. I'm healthy. I'm bleeding to get back into this thing. And we were trying to complete the process with him, but the major league side of this thing and some of the changes to the roster that just occurred from last night's game, allowed us to move it up quicker. So